Hello, and a very warm welcome back to Beyond the Backtest, the systematic trader's journey. In our inaugural episode, we laid the essential groundwork, focusing on the foundational principles of building a robust system. We built the engine, so to speak. Today, however, we turn our attention from the machine to the ghost within it. Our theme is conquering your inner enemy, the psychology of automation. You see, you might find that the most complex and unpredictable variable in any trading setup isn't the market. It's the person sitting at the desk. The greatest challenge isn't coding the perfect strategy, but developing the sheer mental fortitude to let that strategy run uninterrupted when every fiber of your being is telling you to intervene. That is the true journey, and the one we begin today. So, let's begin with a concept I call the discretionary brain. For many of us who start in the markets, our approach is deeply intuitive. It's about the art of it, isn't it? Relying on gut feel, sensing the market's rhythm, feeling your way through the price action. And you might find that in the short term, this is often rewarded. For instance, you see a setup you like, and then find a news article that perfectly confirms your bias. You take the trade, and it works out splendidly. Or you feel that by watching every tick, you are somehow steering the outcome, a classic illusion of control. The great difficulty is that these instincts, which feel so right and are sometimes reinforced with profit, build a formidable psychological wall. They become the very barrier you must overcome when transitioning to a hands-off, evidence-based approach, pitting your ingrained habits against the cold, hard logic of your system. This brings us to what I call the leap of faith. It's truly the heart of the matter. Think of it like being a passenger in a self-driving car for the very first time. You've seen the data. The logic tells you it's orders of magnitude safer than a human driver. Yet every instinct in your body is screaming at you to grab the steering wheel at the first unexpected lane change. It's that precise feeling. You might find you develop a specific fear of the black box, this algorithm you've built but can't fully feel in the moment. And there is nothing, truly nothing, more emotionally painful than watching your system take a trade that your intuition screamed against, only to see it stop out for a loss. That single moment can feel like a profound betrayal by your own creation, and it's the crucible where your discipline is forged or broken. Now, one might assume that once the system is built and running, the psychological battle is won. But what I found is that our old enemies don't simply vanish. They merely adopt new disguises. The most common is what I call intervention bias. This is that palpable, overwhelming urge to tweak, pause, or override the system while it's live. You see a setup forming, but the morning's news feels a bit uncertain, so you decide to skip this one signal. It feels like you're adding a crucial human layer of wisdom. Then there's its insidious cousin, recency bias. After a string of perfectly normal losses, you might find your faith in the entire system evaporating. Conversely, after a strong winning streak, it's terribly tempting to become overconfident, perhaps to increase your position size, abandoning the very risk parameters that make the system robust. You see, the biases don't leave. They just get much, much cleverer. And this leads us to the heart of the matter, what I call taming the drawdown dragon. If there is one singular force that derails more systematic traders than any other, it is the sheer psychological weight of a drawdown. The crucial first step, I find, is to stop framing them as failures. They are not. They are an inevitable, mathematically certain cost of doing business. Think of it as the rent you pay for occupying your particular edge in the market. Your most powerful tool here is a well-documented backtest. What I always do is look at the maximum drawdown statistic from my research, not as a warning, but as a benchmark. It becomes a vital psychological anchor. When you're in a live drawdown, you might find that being able to look at your research and say, this is uncomfortable, but it's only half of what the system has historically weathered, is the one thing that prevents you from making a panicked account-ending decision. So, having stared into the abyss of drawdowns and our own biases, how do we begin to forge the mindset required to overcome them? The most significant change, I find, is cultivating what we call probabilistic thinking. It requires you to truly internalize that the outcome of any single trade is essentially random and frankly irrelevant. The goal is no longer to be right on this particular setup. You might find it more effective to focus entirely on being profitable over a large sample size, hundreds, even thousands of trades. This necessitates a profound shift in your professional identity. What I had to do was let go of the ego attached to being a market predictor. You become instead a system manager. Your new job description isn't forecasting. It's simply ensuring the flawless execution of a process you've already proven has an edge. That is the new mission. So, let's move from the abstract to the actionable. What are some practical tools for this mental game? What I find immensely helpful is keeping a psychological trading journal. This isn't just about logging trades. It's about logging your emotions, your doubts, every single urge to intervene. When you review this weekly, you might find your personal bias patterns become startlingly clear. Another powerful technique is what I call a pre-commitment contract. I physically write and sign a simple document that outlines the only conditions under which I will interfere with my system. A server outage, for example. It forces intervention to be a deliberate, logical act, not an emotional impulse. And finally, you might find the most effective tool is strategic disengagement. Simply reduce your screen time. There is no edge to be gained from watching every tick of your P&L. To make this all a bit more tangible, let me share a story I often tell, which I call the tinkerer's demise. Imagine a trader, let's call him David. He built a truly elegant system, and the backtest was a thing of beauty. But when he went live, his discretionary brain took over. He began to help it. He'd see a valid signal, but decide the market didn't feel right, and skip it. Or a trade would be in modest profit, and he'd manually close it, convinced he was cleverly protecting capital. What he did, which I find is an invaluable exercise, was to compare his actual account P&L against a simulated P&L of the untouched system. The result was sobering. His tinkering hadn't added value. It had systematically destroyed his own edge. The data showed quite plainly that he was the bug in his own code. And this leads to a perspective that I find completely changes the game. You might find it helpful to view your automated system not as a tool you wield, but as a perfect, emotionless mirror reflecting your own discipline. Think about it. The system's intended performance, the pure P&L curve from your research, is the baseline. That's the control experiment. Any deviation between that pure result and what happens in your actual brokerage account is simply data. It's a measurement, a direct reflection of your psychological interference. What this does is reframe the entire dynamic. It's no longer a battle of me versus the system. It becomes me versus me, which I find is the only battle that truly matters. The system simply shows you the scorecard in that very personal contest. So, as we draw this session to a close, the central idea I'd like to leave you with is this. Mastering your own psychology is every bit as crucial as mastering the code for your system. You might find that your ingrained biases don't simply disappear with automation. They merely adopt clever new disguises. The entire objective then becomes a profound shift in perspective, from trying to be a market predictor to becoming a dispassionate system manager. Now that your inner game is strong, the next logical question is, how do you pick the right battlefield? Next time, on Choosing Your Arena, the unique character of markets, we'll explore that very thing. We'll delve into why a strategy that thrives in equities might wither in Forex, as we uncover the distinct personalities of different asset classes. I do hope you'll join me.
If you find this information useful, we would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe this channel to help others find us. If there are subjects you would like covered, please add in the comments section and we will include it in future episodes. Thanks for watching.